Hey, good morning, guys. So this is just the promise video, kind of walking you through the midterm a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So I'll post this after we talk about it a little bit. I made it go away for no reason. Um, all right. So the essay question, the midterm essay question, and again, you have the question is open now, and you have until Sunday at 11:59 to hand it in. What I would like for you to do is to prep a little bit before you begin writing. And so this is just kind of walking you through the steps of how you might want to approach this paper and how, in fact, you should prep. So if we were in a classroom, we would have done this as a group. We would have kind of sat down and we would have located the main argument and we would have talked things out. So I'm trying to simulate that for you as best as possible. So the essay question is, would families of color be better off or worse off if they rejected the belief in the meritocracy? Okay, so this is based on the essay that you should have read. So what some ways to get into this when you talk about any kind of, this is for our midterm exam prep, but any kind of writing exam prep, you want to go through a few steps. The first is you want to annotate the text and locate the main argument. It is impossible to write a really good essay without reading and annotating the text well and understanding the text. Then you want to kind of figure out, okay, so this is what the author's talking about. Do I agree or disagree? And you want to provide 3 clear reasons why, because those 3 clear reasons will be the topic sentences of your body paragraph, right? So I agree with this, and because 1, 2, 3, and even if your thesis doesn't list those 3 points, they should still be in the back of your head because you know you're going to come back to them in your body. Your thesis doesn't have to list those points. The next thing you want to do is outline your essay. An academic essay is at least 5 paragraphs, so you want to make sure that you have at least 1 paragraph for an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. If you have a longer attention grabber, you know that can be an extra paragraph if you so choose. And then the last thing you want to do, because a really good paper, at least a B paper at this level, always incorporates the text. So you want to look for quotes and paraphrases that might support your topic sentences in your body paragraphs. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you are having a hard time with paraphrase, and some of you are, I mean, we're going to work on it for sure, but just stick with the quotes. Like if you're like, if on that second essay, you just paraphrase without citing, that's plagiarism. You can't do that. So instead of just telling me what the essay says, just use the quote so you're forced to do the in-text citation, or be really, really, really careful with the paraphrase. Okay, so we're just going to do a close look at the article, and this article is lovely because they give you the main argument. And so the main argument is in the title. So why the myth of meritocracy hurts kids of color? So it's very clear that this author believes that it does, that this myth of meritocracy hurts kids of color. And she says it, a new study finds that believing in society is fair can lead a disadvantaged adolescents to act out and engage in risky behavior. This is the main argument, right? So they give it to you in the title, they give it to you like before the essay proper begins. And then when I look in it, when I get into the essay, I just kind of cut and paste the first 2 paragraphs. The first thing the article does is it describes the community. So I know what the community looks like. I know who's in the community. I know socioeconomic status. I know that it's located in Chicago, right? And then again, because other people write their essays the same way we're learning to write essays. So after they come out of there, you want to consider this an introduction, right? They're giving us some background information. After they come out, here's that main argument again, right? Barrett said it was vital to reject the oft-perpetuated narrative that society is fair and equal to address students' questions and concerns about their conditions, right? So it's repeated again. That's the main argument. So how does the text prove this? So when you get to this point, so you want to map out the main argument for yourself, and I started to do that for you here. So a really good exercise is to just go in and pull out the pieces of the text that you feel really, really support that main argument, because you can always go back to the stuff that you pull out and you can use it either for a quote or a paraphrase. But it's also a good way of organizing the text for yourself. So the text proves this by these supporting details. So the first thing I have is from page 2, and I mark the page for myself so that I can go back, and when I use it, I already have the in-text citation, right? So students begin to blame themselves for problems they can't control. I thought this one was really good. Traditionally marginalized youth who grew up believing in the American idea that hard work and perseverance naturally lead to success show a decline in self-esteem and increase in risky behaviors during their middle school years. So these are all the reasons why, and they're not all, I just started a little bit, but the reason why I think this text makes a convincing argument. But for those marginalized by the system, economically, racially, and ethnically, believing the system is fair puts them in conflict with themselves and can have negative consequences. And then here, the last one, as for why this leads to more risky behavior, Godfrey points to research that suggests people who really believe the system is fair internalize stereotypes, believing and acting out false and negative claims about their group more readily than those who disavow these views. So again, that's a really strong argument for me. So what he's saying here is that if I am a person of color and I have all these negative stereotypes about me, like just, and we talked about this in the race PowerPoint, what happens is if I believe in that myth that if I just work hard enough and I'll be fine and that's all I need to do, and then I run up into this systemic racism, I don't look at the system and I don't say the system is wrong. I say, oh, these stereotypes about me and my group must be true. And then I start to enact those stereotypes. That's called internalizing stereotypes. So that's a really strong argument for me. So here I'm mapping out why I believe, why or how this text has convinced me, or how this text makes this argument. And then the next thing I do once I have that all mapped out is I kind of, say, do I agree or disagree with the text? Now, what you want to remember for an essay, particularly that's timed, like you only have a weekend to do this. And generally you would have like 2 hours for a midterm if we were actually in class. What you want to remember is that it's always easier to agree with the text. Even if you're like, I'm not sure about this. It's easier as a writer to agree with the text because what you're doing then is you're just building on the argument that the author has already started. So in some ways it requires less of you. And then finally, as you begin to think about your thesis and whether you agree or disagree with this text, look back to the PowerPoint on race for ideas, because that's where I give you a ton of ideas. So I would agree with this because, and then look at that race PowerPoint, or I would disagree with this because, and then da-da-da. All right, so once you should map this out for yourself so you can see it. So here I agree with this, and my reasons are systemic racism, racial stereotypes, internalized racism, or internalizing stereotypes. And then for disagree, I would have a few, like why would you disagree? 1, 2, 3. So you can kind of begin to see what you're thinking about this article. So once you have your points for each side, then you can come up with a thesis. So you figured out, I agree for these reasons, I disagree for these reasons, come up with your thesis. So the easiest way to begin your thesis, particularly for folks who are still writing awkward thesis statements, is just to make the question into a statement. It doesn't necessarily have to be pretty. A thesis is a workhorse. It's just there to get us into the rest of your paper. So you can completely agree or disagree with the text. So I'm completely agreeing here. This is just an example. Families of color should reject the myth of the meritocracy because, and whatever I'm going to say here, whatever those reasons are, and I would be agreeing over here. Here is where I would disagree. Families of color should accept the myth of the meritocracy because, and here I'm disagreeing. And you would just tell me why. But you can also complicate your thesis and address both sides. So I certainly wouldn't if you can pull it off and you can get a good argument, then, do what you feel like you can pull off. But if you're going to disagree, I would probably qualify it. So you can also complicate your thesis and address both sides, because you can't say, like, particularly in this moment that we're in, that there's no such thing as racism or systemic racism. Like you can't say that right now. So, or that individuals can like overcome racism by individual effort. That's a hard sell. But what you can say is the myth of meritocracy hurts families of colors because, right? So I'm addressing that that myth and how, you know, it can lead to all this awfulness. However, I'm saying also, it's also crucial, however, it's also crucial that families of color believe in their own agency and power. And that's just another way of saying that it's important that families of color believe that they can change their circumstances in some ways, even if they come up against this wall. So I give you 3 examples here. I give you an example of how to begin a thesis if you completely agree, how to begin a thesis if you completely disagree. And these are just examples. Some of you don't need this at all. Like, you're fine coming up with thesis statements. So if you don't need this, take it with a grain of salt and do your own thing. And then here's an example where I'm kind of, you know, playing both sides. I'm saying, yeah, you know, it hurts families of color, but they also need to believe in their own agency. All right. So once you have a clear thesis and once you kind of map out the essay, you're ready to write. So this essay should be at least 5 paragraphs, right? It should have an introduction that ends with a clear thesis statement. It should have 3 body paragraphs with clear topic sentences. So if these are the points, if I go back to my points that I want to talk about, then I know that I'm going to pull these 3 points and they're going to be the points that are in my topic sentence. Like, so these are the 3 things I want to talk about in my body paragraph. It should have a conclusion that goes through the 3 steps. And the 3 steps of the conclusion is you restate the main argument of the text, you restate your thesis or topic sentences, and then you kind of end with some wrap-up strategy where you leave us thinking about something new. It can be a quote, it can be a prediction, it can be a song, I don't care, it can be a song, but something that leaves me thinking about this in a new way or leaves me with new information. This essay, you're in college, you should use textual support in the forms of quotes and or paraphrases. So make sure that you have a quote, I would say for an A, you probably want a quote in each body paragraph. So it can be quotes and or paraphrases. And if you're still a little iffy with paraphrases, just stick to the quotes. It's all good. Like, we have time to work on paraphrases as we go ahead. It should control sentence structure. So your sentence structure should not get in the way of me understanding the essay. And then the final thing is that it should be an MLA format. And so you just want to make sure that all your quotes have in-text citation, that you have a header and footer, and that first page is set up the way that it should be for MLA format. And that's just a matter of watching the video and just kind of writing what the video says. And also make sure you have a works cited page. And that's basically it. So I'm going to stop my share. So again, you have until Sunday at 11:59. I have your second papers. I started grading. Hopefully, I will have those for you no later than Tuesday of next week. Everyone should have their papers back. And then you're going to have to give me like another week or so to get through your midterms. All right, have a good weekend. I'm here today for my office hours from like 1 to 3. So if you need to talk to me, just hit me up, and we can like either schedule a phone call or have a Zoom meeting. And I will check email over the weekend. Generally, I tend not to all that much, but because you're in a midterm, I'll check email. So if you have any questions as you begin to write, just let me know. All right, good luck. You got this. You can do this. 5-paragraph essay, a good one, you're looking at 2.5 to 3 pages. Some of you write more, and that's fine. If you go over 3 pages, that's cool. But you can probably get this done in about 3 good pages. All right, good luck. Take care.